It's time for Outdoors Bound with George Noliff. Sponsored by Kubota of Lynchburg and Tony's RV.
Outdoors Bound this morning, and a tool that's used in submarine warfare is now being put to use at Smith Mountain Lake. But instead of tracking enemy submarines, sonar is being used to track fish. WFXR's George Noliff has the story.
Did you hear that? That ping? That is a striped bass finning around beneath the waves at Smith Mountain Lake.
I think that he can be sitting in between 14 and 14 and a half.
And the guys tracking them are Nathan Smith and Riley Phelps. They're grad students from Coastal Carolina University working with the Virginia Department of Wildlife Resources on a catch and release mortality study at Smith Mountain Lake. The study involves catching stripers, tagging them with a radio transmitter, letting them go, and then tracking them to see how many live after being released.
So we're going to be tracking our tagged fish for the striped bass catch and release mortality project that we're working on. And so what we have right here, this is a towable omnidirectional hydrophone.
You can hear kind of loud beeping pings, and it gets louder the closer you get to it.
The tags emit an ultrasonic ping, which is just a really loud beep. But they're at specific frequencies, so with basically Morse code within the beeps that help us identify them.
So why is catch and release mortality important to know? Well, right now, if you catch striped bass at Smith Mountain Lake between June and October, up to 2 a day, you're supposed to keep them, regardless of size. Now, that's based on research in other places that shows because of physiology, stripers released into warm summer water don't have a great survival rate.
84.7, 83.6.
We've been seeing it hanging out not too far over there, so I'm curious to see where he ended up, if he's moved much at all.
But those studies were done on shallow bowl-shaped lakes in the south and west. Smith Mountain Lake's different. It's V-shaped and deep with lots of oxygen at just the right water temperature, and that could mean a big difference in survivability.
The biggest issue for inland striped bass is when they're landlocked, they don't have anywhere to go to seek thermal refuge. Whenever the temperature gets too hot for them, they're fairly cold to temperate acclimated species, so they don't really like temperatures higher than 78 or so.
Definitely close.
It's not quite on them just yet.
I think it's on, just in front of us, but I'm getting a ping when it's 360.
We won't know until the research is done if catch and release striper survivability is any better at Smith Mountain Lake. But if it is, it could mean different harvest regulations at the lake and different management practices. And that could help the striped bass population thrive. How y'all doing, folks? So far, about 40 fish are being tracked. A few of them have died, but others are still swimming. The researchers hope to eventually track about 120 fish. More's better because it'll give them a better idea of how many fish actually survive a summer release.
George, you're always out there learning stuff. What else do you learn?
Well, in addition to mortality, researchers also learn about striped bass movement. They're following around. That's important. As far as management of the species go, because it gives fisheries biologists an even greater understanding of the species. As for movement, so far, some fish stay put after being released, but others, they're moving around. They range around. In one case, Brandon, one of these stripers they put in a week swam 8 miles. They had to track that thing all over the lake. So cool stuff. Results coming sometime next year. So we hopefully will know a little bit more about striped bass and maybe see some management changes at Smith Mountain Lake because of it.
Yeah. All right, George, thanks.